My name is Scott Randolph, and normally this seat would be occupied by Evan Sanford. But today, we're going to take a different tack, and we're going to put the focus on Evan. Evan, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is indeed an honor for me to have the opportunity to interview you here at the end of your senior year at the University of Redlands. So, I have some questions for you that I hope will elicit the kind of conversation that we all hope, right, is what represents the best of radio. All right, so you arrived at the university in the fall of 2014. You wandered through Gannett Hall, where we are, discovered what can only be described as a shell of a radio station, and you decided, I can make this thing happen again. So walk us through that process. How did that happen?
Actually, I came in the fall of 13, so I actually have had one more year.
On my part.
No, so the second week of school, I started asking around, so what's the process of starting something like this? And I end up talking to different members of the administration and student life, and I end up getting keys to the building, and that was really symbolic now that I think of it, because there were rooms in this building that we didn't have, we had to make keys because they just hadn't been used in decades. This room specifically, so you can only imagine what this room looked like once we got into it, and now it looks like, you know,
looks like a professional radio station.
That's what we've tried to. That's what we've tried to do, and that goes for pretty much every room in this building. And so when I think about it, just coming into an entire floor, when so many college stations have maybe a closet type or sized room, we had an entire floor. So now we have two amazing production spaces like this, and then control rooms for each room, plus an office and a lobby. I mean, this is really incredible when you think about it. And all I tried to do was to make sure I did everything I could to establish what this station could be forever, and in doing so, tried to do the things that I thought students might not want to do in the future. For instance, paint walls, get carpet, put an alarm system on, make keys, you know, get the walls decorated. The problem that I think pretty much every college station faces is every 4 years it faces an eventual
generational
downfall.
Crisis.
Exactly. And I feared that something could happen just like this, and you know, it's no different than any other station, but I tried to tackle things myself that I knew if I don't do it, I'm not sure who will, and it shouldn't be the responsibility of a freshman to have to, you know, get access to rooms and put in a security system and get, you know, software budgets and proposals and all of these different things, whereas if I can do it and have that established before I leave, all people have to do is just not stop doing things. And I tried to do that, and I am so lucky that we have a great staff here this year. I'm not running it this year, but it was really great to see that there are other students that are wanting to take it to the next level and to continue running the station, and I'm very proud of them.
Well, you should be. This is really a tribute, everything here, to the work that you and your team have put in.
Thank you.
To this space, which leads me to another question. So you are known in the college radio world, having won an award as best station manager at a college station. So you've had an opportunity to interact with radio stations, college radio stations around the country. So setting aside that generational issue, what do you see are some of the challenges for college radio? Because I mean, traditionally college radio was a place either connected to journalism schools,
that's right,
or it was for young people, new music, you know, that kind of 1980s, 1990s college radio experience. And you know, the media network, the media environment's different today. The opportunities to acquire information and interaction with music is far larger. And so there's a question about what is the need then? What's the role for college radio in the future? And what do you see as some of those challenges?
Well, I was lucky enough to work at an NPR station in the summer of 2015. And it was really enlightening because they didn't call themselves a radio station. They called themselves a multi-platform news organization. And what that symbolizes is that they're not just a radio station. They videotape interviews out in the field when they're doing man-on-the-street interviews. They have podcasts, and all of this goes on social media and their website, and it's not just radio. And I think for stations to understand that, and I think we all are trying to adapt to that, but to film the shows as they're happening, even if it's 3 GoPros in the radio booth, at least you're getting more people involved and interested in the kind of content that is being produced, because I think that there's a stereotype that just people don't listen to the radio anymore. And I'm not full of statistics. I don't know all of those facts and figures, but what I would say is, and I think it's pretty much undeniable, the more opportunities you offer, the more audience you're going to attract. And I think if you can afford it, and that is one of the biggest issues that stations have, especially college stations, when you have a budget that changes every year, mostly going down, right. How are you able to afford to keep up equipment or buy merchandise to raise awareness about the station, software, licensing, all of this stuff? The key is, how do you balance all of that? And it's a lot to handle, but I feel like a lot of students now have the ability to do these kinds of things, and it's not so out of their technical expertise. People use GoPros all the time. They can figure out how to do this. And it takes a really special kind of student to not only know how to do that, but want to do that. And I think what's so great about the last couple of years is that I have found those students. And that's why it's so gratifying when I find a student, and yes, we don't have a communications or journalism program here at the university, but they still want to do this. And so what we have in the station are only the most motivated and passionate and dedicated students, because they don't have to be here. They're not getting credit for it. They have no other reason to be here than the fact that they just want to be here. And so that really is a wonderful opportunity to really work with some people who want to learn about radio and television. And I'm so excited to work with those kinds of students, because I know their intentions. They have no ulterior motive. They're not here just to get a grade. They're not here just to put the hours in that they need to for a class. They're here because they want to. And if only every station could have that, I think maybe radio would be more prevalent.
Well, I mean, some of that is a tribute to your work, Evan, which we need to emphasize here. And that brings me to my next question. So if you mention Evan Sanford's name on campus, faculty, students, alumni, staff, random people driving down Colton Avenue, and the first thing that comes to mind is KDAWG and the radio station and your kind of across the media spectrum engagement. And that's how folks from the outside identify you. How do you identify yourself?
I've had so many opportunities in the last 4 years. I can't even begin to describe all of them, because we'd be here for another 4 hours. But I think what I've gotten out of this is the fact that I really want to work with students. I'm not sure in what capacity yet, whether it's an actual teaching role or a mentoring role, or I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but I've had the opportunity to speak at conferences and host conferences even here, and to see students coming together to achieve a common goal, which is to represent their university, put content out there, and get material for them to have for a reel to get a job after college. It's really exciting to see that all come together. And I will, just a couple months ago, I was in New York and I was speaking at a conference about how to work with your university administration, just how to work with that relationship. And so many of the people were saying, we're trying to start a radio station and we don't really know who to talk to. And I'm like, I I feel your pain. I know where you've been. And so this is, it's really gratifying to know that I might be able to provide some information that is really beneficial for these students who are going through these not so out of the ordinary situations. I mean, this is something that happens nearly every year or every 4 years. And I feel like I'm able to contribute and have an impact, hopefully, on all of these students around the country. I mean, that was a national conference, so I had people from all of these different states, and just to think that I've had an impact, or hopefully, I mean, I'd like to think that I've had an impact on not just Redlands, but all of these stations, and to think that maybe the next year and the next year I might be able to see them year after year and see how they've progressed and moved forward. I mean, I feel like that is what I am most happy to have gotten out of this experience, because it just means that I'm having more of an impact than I previously thought I'd ever have a chance to do.
Well, I think that's a nice place for us to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Inside the Studio right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Inside the Studio. I'm Scott Randolph. I'm here with Evan Sanford, and we've turned the tables a little bit, actually completely. Evan, I want to ask you a question about some of your guests, and a frequent guest, or a guest that most people are familiar with, are both Jim and Deb Fallows. You've interviewed both of them here on air, and Jim Fallows will be your final interview on Inside the Studio. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the role that they've played to you as mentor and advisors, and your journey here through the University of Redlands.
Well, that is certainly the case. Jim was my first guest, and he'll be my last, and he's come on 2 times in the middle of that, so I feel very honored to have such an established and esteemed journalist on the program. I mean, it's amazing to think that a little show at the University of Redlands could have such an amazing guest, and not only have Jim and Deb come on, but Jane Goodall was the first guest that the show became a television show, and Richard Sherman of the Sherman Brothers. It's really been so exciting for me to have the opportunity to sit down with these people, because you just watch these people on television or through the years, and you'd never think that you'd be able to talk to them in person. But when it happens, it's really surreal. And the first show we did, when it was a radio show, we talked for an hour. That's a long time on the radio.
Yes. And
as a sophomore in college, and his first show ever, not knowing what he's doing, a lot of pressure. When he's on NPR, every week, and he's on the cover of the Atlantic, this guy, I shouldn't waste his time, but he gave me an hour, and that really put everything into perspective, that this is something I could see myself doing. And then when he came on again and again, it just showed me that if you really work hard and you prove yourself that if you're taking it seriously, pretty much anyone would be willing to give you a shot. And I've learned so much talking to the Fallows especially, and they were here for a semester. They were scholars in residence here, and so that was the semester I got to talk to him a couple times. And then when they would come back, they'd be working on another special project, and so I felt like I was so lucky to always being in the know as to what this famous pair of journalists were up to. And I'm actually working on a very special project with them now, which is really exciting. I filmed this test that they did with facilities here at the university, and they're very interested in helping to move from gas-powered leaf blowers to electric. It's something people don't really think about.
Well, they are a significant pollutant.
But they absolutely are, and so there's a facilities management member, Gene, And he did a demo, and I was helping to film it, and I'm going to edit it for Jim. And then they have this group that I'm not sure if it's a lobby or something, but they are really committed to making this happen. And so they are working with manufacturers to make this process happen. And so if I can help in any way, Jim and Deb, and also the university to become that leader in becoming more efficient, I mean, that's really exciting. So I'm happy. I mean, if Jim Fallows asks you for something,
it's like getting a call from the president.
Yeah.
Well, let's move to a little bit more micro question.
Sure.
And kind of reflect on your time here at the radio station and with the other media outlets you've been involved with. What would you say has been your most terrifying on-air moment?
This right now.
Oh, no, we're not going to take that as an answer.
Oh, boy. That was an easy out, wasn't it?
That's too easy.
Oh, gosh.
Plus, you're taking classes with me, so, there's not much unexpected here.
Okay, well, I love this story because, again, it was really symbolic of just a really life-changing moment for me. Jane Goodall, she was sitting in this chair, I was sitting where you are. The first show we've ever done as a television program, so my mind is really preoccupied with a lot of things, Are all the cameras working? This is the first time. And, the air was not working, and it wasn't working for 3 months, and when you came on the show, it also wasn't working.
It was very much a hot box.
Yes, so I am very nervous, of course. A living legend is I'm in the presence of a living legend, and I'm sweating a lot. I'm really sweating. And in the break, I say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I just apologize. And Jane Goodall leans into me and says, all primates sweat. Don't worry about it. And for Jane Goodall to tell me that, that put my mind at ease, and really, since then, I have been able to work with anything that comes my way. Just coming from her, that was really, really great.
Well, you've talked a lot about what you've done here. And as we all know, or many of us know, in a week's time, you will have walked across the Greek stage, graduated from the University of Redlands. When you look past that, what excites you? What concerns you? What are the paths? Right? Because we can have multiple paths, multiple ideas about what we might be doing. Where do you see Evan Sanford moving in the next year, next 5 years, next 10 years?
I definitely see myself doing interviews. I really like talking to interesting people, and to think of spending my life talking to interesting people, I feel like what a better way to spend your life. You learn so much, and you're able to have an influence on so many people, especially if they watch your show to become more educated and informed about whatever the topic is, and especially if the topic changes every week. Your show's not going to be stale because you're talking to artists, musicians, politicians, teachers, whatever the case might be. And I feel like I could really learn so much and spend my life doing that. And I'm not sure the path that gets me there, but I'd like to think that, at least for a good part of my life, I would be able to do that, because I just feel like I would become such a better person for it and learn so much, and hopefully have that impact, as I said, on the people who watch the program.
Oh, wonderful. So I want to pivot toward kind of modern day events. You have had, I think, a unique opportunity here to interview a variety of people who have an enormous amount of things to say about the world as it is, the world as it was, and the way the world may be. And as a journalist, as an interviewer, when you look at the contemporary world landscape, what are the things that concern you? What are the things that you think we're going to be talking about in the next couple of months and over the next year? And how has journalism and that interaction between the pivotal role that the journalist plays in interacting between the people and the state is changing or will change?
I had the opportunity to talk to John Meacham, who is a contributing editor for Time magazine, and I asked him that specific question because even more so from him, it carries a lot more weight. But he said that what he's concerned about in terms of journalism, and ever since he said it, it's become more and more apparent to me that this is the biggest problem that journalism is facing, is that there's such a lack of trust for the establishment. That word, establishment, is really, it has a negative connotation now. And the undermining that a lot of what is said now in the political atmosphere especially, in terms of how we're draining the swamp and establishment politics and all of this stuff, how that's bad. That translates to establishments in terms of journalism organizations and the New York Times, for instance, or Time magazine. If people don't trust that, I feel like that is a huge blow to a democracy, because without a free press that people trust, if nobody trusts anything, where are you going to get your information from? The people in power? There's nobody to argue with them? And those people that say that the people arguing with them are fake just because they don't agree with them, not because they might be incorrect, but if something's fake because you don't like it, that's not healthy. And John Meacham was talking about how the influx of social media headlines really had such an impact, or would have such an impact. We taped it before the election, but it would have an impact on the election because people, instead of watching Morning Joe, for instance, or news programs, they would just see what would come across their social media profile, their news feed. And I feel like they wouldn't get as much information as they would if they were to see more than just maybe the bubble that you're in when you're on social media, because everything is tailored to the likes that you have, and you don't really see anything outside that. And so it's interesting for me because I force myself to watch things that I don't agree with, because I need to know how other people are hearing about things in the world. And if you don't understand that, I don't see how you can have a conversation with someone who's only watching that, because they're coming at it from that angle and you're coming at it from a different angle, and you don't have any empathy for what they're saying. And I feel like that's such a prevalent issue right now. People don't want to talk about things because they're afraid, oh, it's just going to go down a rabbit hole. There's no way we're going to agree on anything. Why even have the conversation in the first place? When that breaks down, like I said, that's just not a world that I want to live in.
It's a frightening world.
It is, and it
Absolutely.
seems like it's coming to be more and more true every day. And so in a show like this, I've had the opportunity to talk to more than one side, and that's really important, I think. And I've been better for it.
Evan, you are leaving behind a remarkable legacy of effort, perseverance, and success here at the university. What would you tell an incoming freshman you might meet this summer about the university, about building things anew, and about crafting the college experience to its fullest?
You are very lucky that you have the chance to go to a place where the only thing stopping something from happening is yourself. Because I've been the very lucky recipient of pretty much being able to do what I wanted to do. And there's not a whole lot of colleges or universities that just have that. I mean, you have to prove yourself and you have to be serious and take yourself and the project seriously. But I've met so many people here that are graduating and in other years that have been able to start clubs and organizations or intramural teams and all of this stuff. This is a place where if you want to do something, you can do it. And that is really exciting. And it's just crazy to think that in just a short while, I'm not going to be a student anymore. It seems like I can't snap. I'm not sure why I thought I could. Of all times to snap, it would be on my second to last show.
It's always important, I think, to have a little bit of not perfection, because it makes the perfection seem all that more perfect, right? It's the error in the circle that we're drawn to rather than the perfection of the circle itself.
So in 50 years after my career in television, I will come to you and say, look, I can snap now.
That's all the time we have for the program today. Evan, thank you so much.
Thank
It's been
you.
an honor to know you and a privilege to have the opportunity to interview you here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Scott Randolph, and this is Inside the Studio. We'll see you soon.